Okay, I want you to picture the scene. It's Monday, September 20th, 2004. We're in the Yorkshire Dales,
Mm.
and not just anywhere in the Dales, but on the rugged, windswept landscape of Pennygent.
It's serious country up there.
It really is. If you've ever hiked the Pennine Way, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about.
Mm.
This is not a gentle park walk. This is, it's ancient, it's limestone, screed.
Mm.
It's just vast and sparse.
Beautiful, but completely unforgiving. It's the kind of place that demands your respect. You go there to escape, to disconnect from everything.
Exactly. And on this particular day, it's about 11:30 in the morning, and you've got this group of hikers, just regular people out for a walk. They stop for a break. You're at a place called Selgill Beck.
A beck being the northern term for a stream.
Right. And this one is pretty striking because it flows down into this cave system, Selgill Hole.
Yeah.
It's picturesque. The perfect spot to drop your pack, have a cup of tea from a thermos.
Which is exactly what they were doing. They were taking photos, just enjoying the day, a totally normal recreational moment.
And then the whole atmosphere just shifts. It goes from peaceful to, well, to absolutely chilling in a split second.
It's that moment, isn't it? That cognitive dissonance when your brain sees something it just can't immediately process.
Yeah. One of the hikers, they look into the water, into the beck, and they see a shape, a bit of color that just doesn't belong in the greens and grays of the dales.
And their first thought wasn't, that's a person.
No, not at all. Their first thought was, is that a mannequin?
Which is such a common psychological defense. We see it all the time. Your brain is confronted with something so traumatic in a context where it shouldn't be, and it tries to recategorize it as something safe. A doll, discarded clothes, a mannequin.
It sounds absurd now looking back, but in that moment, a mannequin is weird, sure, but it's not terrifying. It's just litter.
But as they kept looking, that defense just crumbled.
Yeah. They realized it wasn't plastic, it was skin. It was the body of a woman, face down in the water, her body sort of curled around the rocks.
And just like that, the day out is over. The police are called. The silence of the Dales is broken. But that discovery, that was just the very, very beginning of the confusion.
Because the details of the scene, they just didn't add up at all.
They really didn't. And this brings us right to the core enigma of the woman who for 15 years was known only as the Lady of the Hills.
An unidentified woman, found in this beautiful but incredibly remote spot with no ID, no wallet, no keys.
And the most baffling detail of all, no shoes.
That's the one. That's the detail that has always stuck with me about this case. No shoes. We just described the terrain. You do not wander around Pennygent barefoot. It's sharp rock, it's cold mud.
Exactly. And that one detail, that lack of footwear, it just screams foul play before a pathologist has even seen the body. It tells you something is deeply, deeply wrong here.
So today on this deep dive, we are unpacking one of the most perplexing cold cases in British history. We're going to look at how a woman can remain unidentified for a decade and a half.
And we're going to get into the incredible science, really digging into the chemistry that finally gave her back her name.
And we'll cover the massive developments that have happened just in the last year or so. From our perspective now, in February 2026, we're looking back at events from early 2025 that completely changed the game.
Yeah, this has shifted from a tragic mystery to a very, very active homicide investigation.
We've got a huge stack of sources here. Police reports, BBC archives, insights from the Cold Case Review Unit, and even some technical papers on the forensics. We're covering the crime scene, the years of silence, the scientific aha moment, and the status of the main suspect, her husband, David Armitage.
It's an incredible story of forensic persistence, international police work, and a small community that just refused to let a stranger be forgotten.
So let's start with the body itself. The condition of the remains made this an absolute nightmare from day one.
A forensic nightmare. The pathologist estimated she'd been dead for between 1 and 3 weeks. So the death window was somewhere between, let's say, August 31st and September 13th, 2004.
And being in water for that long, that can't be good for evidence.
It's terrible. Water accelerates decomposition massively, and it washes away any trace evidence, fibers, DNA, anything like that.
So any chance of a visual identification was gone?
Out. Completely impossible. Her features were unrecognizable, and it also meant that the pathologist couldn't determine a cause of death.
Why not?
Because the soft tissue had degraded so much they couldn't see signs of strangulation or suffocation or, injection marks. The water had basically erased the story that the body usually tells.
But the skeleton was okay.
The skeleton was intact, yes. And that was crucial because it allowed them to rule things out. There were no broken bones, no bullet holes, no knife marks on the ribs.
So no violent attack like a bludgeoning or a shooting.
Probably not, but that still leaves so many quiet ways for someone to die. Which is why the inquest in 2007 had to record an open verdict: death unexplained.
Let's talk about her clothes, because that tells its own story. She was wearing green Marks and Spencer jeans, a green and white striped t-shirt, and socks.
M&S jeans. That's such a specific British cultural marker, isn't it? It suggests she wasn't just a backpacker who'd arrived yesterday. She, or whoever bought her clothes, shopped on the British high street.
But again, no shoes and no coat, no waterproofs.
I mean, think about the weather in the Dales in September. It can turn on a dime. It's windy, it's rainy, you just don't go hiking in a t-shirt and socks.
So the lack of a coat and shoes, it points to her not getting to that stream under her own power.
Or at the very least, she didn't walk there prepared for a hike. It implies she was either taken there against her will or she died somewhere else, maybe indoors, and her body was moved there afterwards.
Her socks were dirty, though.
They were, which could suggest she walked a short distance or was perhaps dragged, but she certainly didn't hike for miles.
There's also that strange detail about her bra.
Yes, a ripped bra with broken hooks was found hanging off her arm. Now, that could mean a struggle, or, with the flow of the water, it could just be postmortem displacement. But when you add it to the no-shoes detail, it paints a picture of real disarray.
I know that early on, there was this theory about hypothermia. You hear about this thing called paradoxical undressing.
Oh, yeah, it's a real phenomenon. In the final stages of severe hypothermia, your body's temperature regulation just goes haywire. All this warm blood rushes from your core to the skin, and you feel like you're burning up even as you're freezing to death.
And people start tearing their clothes off.
They do. So the initial theory was, okay, maybe she got lost, fell, hypothermia set in, she took off her coat and shoes, and then died from exposure.
It's a neat explanation. It sort of ties everything up.
It's a very convenient theory that explains it away as a tragic accident, but it completely falls apart as soon as you zoom out and look at the bigger picture.
So dismantle it for us. What's wrong with it?
I call it the social paradox. Early on, forensic anthropologists established she was likely of Southeast Asian ethnicity. So, okay, let's play this out. Let's say she's a tourist who got lost. Where is her family? Where are her friends? If I go missing on a hike, my family is calling the police inside of a day. My work is calling. Someone notices I'm gone.
And if she's a tourist, there's a paper trail.
Of course. A passport stamp, a hotel booking, a rental car that doesn't get returned, a flight she missed. There was nothing. Zero reports of any missing Southeast Asian tourists in the entire UK.
Okay, so if she wasn't a tourist, if she lived here,
Then why did nobody report her missing? That is the question. That's the silence that is just deafening in this case. For a resident of the UK to vanish off the face of the earth, and for no one, no family, no friends, no colleagues, to call the police.
it implies her absence was explained away.
Precisely. Explained away by someone close to her, someone who could say, oh, she went back home, or she left me. A plausible story that stops the neighbors from asking questions.
Before we get into how the police eventually broke that silence, I really want to talk about the village, Horton in Ribblesdale. Because in the middle of all this darkness, there's this really incredible, touching human story.
It's so moving. This is a small, tight-knit community, and this unnamed, unclaimed woman is found in their hills. And instead of just seeing it as a police matter, they adopted her.
They raised money for her funeral. They bought her a headstone.
40 people from the village attended the funeral of a woman they had never met. I mean, just think about that. Taking time out of your day to stand in a churchyard for a complete stranger.
For 15 years, she was the Lady of the Hills. That was the name they gave her.
And that name, it's respectful, but it's also so lonely, isn't it? She became their responsibility, their adopted daughter, because no one else was there to claim her.
It's a testament to that basic human need for dignity. They refused to let her be just a case number.
And, the fact that they tended her grave, that they kept flowers there for all those years, that became a massive source of comfort for her real family when they finally found out what had happened.
So let's fast forward. The case goes cold. An open verdict is recorded. Years go by. And then in 2016, the North Yorkshire Police Cold Case Review Unit decides to take a fresh look.
And this is where Adam Harland and his team come in. The fascinating thing about cold case reviews is that they're not looking for new evidence at the scene that's long gone. They're looking for new ways to interpret old evidence.
And they made a really crucial shift in perspective, didn't they? They moved away from unexplained death and started treating it as a homicide.
They did. And it was based almost entirely on that silence we just talked about. The lack of a missing person report isn't just an odd detail, it's an indicator of concealment. Someone wanted her to stay missing.
They also look at the logistics of the location.
Yeah, Selgil Beck is about a mile from the nearest road, but if you know the farm tracks, it is accessible by a 4x4.
So the theory changes from she wandered off and died to she was killed and dumped.
Exactly. They used criminal profiling databases. It's grim work, but the data shows that killers rarely carry a body more than about 50 meters from a vehicle. So if you could get a Land Rover near that spot, it becomes a plausible deposition site.
And Adam Harlan, the lead investigator, he had a very specific theory about who she might be.
He did. He started profiling her based on that silence and her ethnicity, and he suggested she was likely what was then termed a Thai bride.
We should probably pause on that term. It can sound a bit loaded.
It can, absolutely. But in the context of early 2000s policing and demographics, it describes a very specific pattern of migration and, crucially, a pattern of vulnerability.
Okay, so let's unpack that. What does that vulnerability actually look like?
We're talking about women from Southeast Asia who moved to the UK specifically to marry British men. Back in 2004, the support networks for these women were often just not there. Social media didn't exist in the same way. International calls were expensive.
So they were incredibly isolated.
Profoundly. Imagine moving to a country where you might not speak the language fluently. You are completely financially dependent on your husband. Your immigration status, your visa, is tied directly to your marriage.
That's a huge power imbalance.
It's massive. If the husband controls the passport, the bank account, and the story he tells the neighbors, that woman becomes effectively invisible to the state.
So if she disappears, he just tells everyone she went home.
It didn't work out. She got homesick. The culture shock was too much. It's the perfect cover story because it's plausible and people tend to believe it.
And her family back in Thailand might not know how to even begin reporting her missing in the UK.
Exactly. It creates this tragic, perfect victim scenario where the killer relies on the apathy of the community and the distance of the family.
The theories are one thing. The police needed proof. They needed to know where she came from. And this is where the science gets really, really cool. It sounds like something out of a sci-fi movie.
Stable isotope analysis. It really is like magic, but it's just pure, hard chemistry. The principle is simple. You are what you eat and drink.
Right. Break that down for us. What exactly is an isotope?
Okay, so everything we consume, food, water, is made of elements, carbon, nitrogen, hydrogen, oxygen. But these elements aren't all identical. They come in slightly different weights, which we call isotopes. So take oxygen. Most of it is oxygen-16. But there's a tiny amount of a heavier version, oxygen-18. And the ratio of the heavy to the light version is different depending on where in the world you are.
So water in Thailand has a different chemical signature to water in Yorkshire.
It has a different isotopic signature, yes. It's determined by things like latitude, altitude, rainfall patterns. And here's the clever bit. As your body builds itself, as your bones grow, as your hair grows, it locks those isotopes into your tissues.
So your body is like a chemical passport recording where you've been.
That's a perfect analogy, and different tissues tell you different things.
Right, so teeth, for example, they form when you're a child and then they're set.
Exactly. The enamel on your teeth is a time capsule of your childhood, and her teeth showed an isotopic signature consistent with growing up in Southeast Asia, specifically Thailand.
Wow. So that scientifically confirmed her ethnicity and origin.
It did. But the hair is the timeline. Hair grows about 1 centimeter a month. So a 12-centimeter strand of hair is a chemical diary of the last year of your life.
So they tested the hair starting from the root, the most recent growth.
And this was the absolute bombshell. The signature didn't match Thailand. It didn't match London. It matched the very specific groundwater profile of the Pennines.
No way.
Specifically South Cumbria and North Lancashire.
That is incredible. So she wasn't a tourist who'd just flown in.
Not at all. She was a resident. She had been living and drinking the tap water in northwest England for at least 2 years before she died.
That must have narrowed the search down massively. They weren't looking for a missing person from anywhere in the world anymore.
They were looking for a woman who had been living her life, drinking cups of tea in Lancashire or Cumbria, a huge breakthrough. But, you know, isotopes give you a region, not a name. You still need that final piece.
So that brings us to 2018. The police launch a huge media campaign. They know they have to think bigger than just local papers in Yorkshire.
They have to go global. And they used tools they didn't have in 2004, namely Facebook. They put out appeals, and crucially, they translated them into Thai and Filipino. They were targeting those diaspora communities.
And then in January 2019, the moment that changes everything.
A BBC Online article. It went into the whole cold case. It had the new details from the isotope analysis, and it featured an artist's reconstruction of what she might have looked like.
And through the power of the internet, that article somehow finds its way to a small village in Udon Thani in northeast Thailand.
To the Sikanya family.
Just imagine that. Imagine being those parents, Bwasa and Junsri Sikanya. You haven't seen your daughter Lamduan since 2004. You've been waiting for a call for 15 years.
And you just don't know. You think maybe she's angry, maybe she's just busy with her new life, and then a friend shows you a sketch on a phone screen.
And they just knew.
They knew instantly. They contacted the Thai authorities and said, "We think this is our daughter."
And then the formal verification process begins.
Right. It can't just be based on a likeness. They needed hard science. North Yorkshire Police worked with the Thai equivalent of the FBI. They flew out, took DNA swabs from the parents,
And compared them to the DNA they'd extracted from the bone of the Lady of the Hills.
and it was a match. They also matched fingerprints from Thai records, and in March 2019, it was official. The Lady of the Hills finally had her name back. She was Lamduan Armitage.
It's the resolution of the mystery, but the confirmation of the tragedy.
It's a deeply bittersweet moment.
So let's talk about Lamduan the person.
Hmm.
For so long, she was just an anonymous victim. Who was she?
She was born in 1968. She met a British man, an English teacher named David Armitage, in Thailand in the early 90s. They married in 1991, and she moved to the UK with him.
And the isotope data about where she lived, it was spot on.
Incredibly accurate. They'd lived in Portsmouth, then Rugby, and finally matching the isotopes perfectly, they settled in Preston, Lancashire.
She was a mother.
A mother of 3, 1 child from a previous relationship in Thailand, and 2 more children with David.
So she was living this life in Preston, raising a family.
And, from what her family says, feeling increasingly isolated and unhappy. The marriage was apparently very rocky. She had told her parents on the phone that she wanted to come home to Thailand.
But she couldn't.
She couldn't afford it. The airfare for herself and 3 children was just impossible for her. And that's the trap we talked about earlier, the financial dependency. She was stuck.
And then, in 2004, the phone calls to her parents just stopped.
Which brings us to the elephant in the room.
The husband, David
Well-
Armitage.
Right. So Lamduan is identified. The police know who she is. They know who she was married to. The focus naturally shifts entirely to him.
And what do we know about him?
He was a university lecturer and educated man, but here is the single most suspicious fact that the police zeroed in on. Very shortly after Lamduan disappeared in 2004, he left the UK.
He moved to Thailand.
He did. He took the children and moved to Kanchanaburi in Thailand, where he got a job teaching English at a university.
And he never once reported his wife, the mother of his children, as a missing person.
Never.
That is just... It's incredibly difficult to find an innocent explanation for that.
It's the absolute cornerstone of the police's suspicion. Even if your wife walks out on you, you'd file a report, wouldn't you? Unless, of course, you know exactly where she is.
The media tracked him down in Thailand back in 2019, right after the identification.
They did. Reporters from The Sun found him, and his reaction was, well, it was telling.
I have the quote here. He said, "I didn't kill my wife. I know the inferences are there, but I'm just getting on with my life."
And in another interview, he said he was bored with it all.
Bored. Bored with an investigation into your wife's death.
That was the word he used. I'm bored with it all. I just want to get on with my work. Now, you have to be objective. People react to trauma in different ways, but bored is a very strange, very cold word to use in that context. It suggests a level of detachment that is, frankly, chilling.
So for years, he's in Thailand. The UK police want to speak to him, but it's a different country, a different legal system.
And extradition is a long, difficult, bureaucratic nightmare. It can take years and years, and the police might not have had a strong enough case for a successful extradition request back then.
So it's a stalemate until early 2025.
This is where it gets really clever, like something out of a spy movie. The authorities realized that pulling him out via extradition was too hard, so they waited for an administrative opening.
In January 2025, Thai immigration police detained him. But not for murder.
For visa violations. It's the old Al Capone trick. They couldn't get Capone on murder, so they got him on tax evasion. Here, they couldn't easily extradite for murder, so they looked at his paperwork and found irregularities.
His visa was revoked, which means he had to leave the country.
Exactly. Deportation is an administrative process, not a criminal one. It's much faster. Once his visa was gone, he was in the country illegally and had to be sent back to his country of origin, the UK.
So, on February 2nd, 2025, he's put on a plane to London.
And you can bet the North Yorkshire police were tracking that flight every second of the way.
The moment he stepped off that plane at Heathrow Airport,
He was arrested immediately on suspicion of the murder of his wife, Lambduin Armitage, 21 years after her body was found in that stream.
that must have been an incredible moment for the detectives who had lived with this case for decades.
Huge. But, and this is a really important point for listeners to grasp, an arrest is not a conviction.
Right. So where are we now in February 2026? What happened after that dramatic arrest?
He was taken into custody, he was questioned for a long time, and then he was released on conditional bail.
Okay, that might surprise people. Released on bail when you're suspected of murder.
It does happen, especially in historical cases like this. It essentially means the police have enough suspicion to arrest him, but the Crown Prosecution Service, the CPS, they need an absolutely watertight case before they can formally charge him.
Because it's a historical case with no smoking gun.
Exactly. There's no DNA of his found on the body in a way that proves murder.
Why not?
Because they were married, of course, his DNA would be on her clothes, his hair, his skin cells. That's just evidence of marriage, not evidence of murder. So forensics can't solve the crime here. It only identified the victim.
So they need more. They
Yeah.
need to fill in that timeline. They need to prove he had the opportunity.
They need to prove the how and the when. And that's what's led to this current missing months appeal. The police are desperately appealing for information about a very specific window.
March to October 2004.
That's the black hole they need to fill. And they're focusing on two very specific places.
Sprott Borough, which is near Doncaster, and Preston.
Right. We know why they're interested in Preston. That matches the isotope data. It's where they live. That's where neighbors might have seen something. But Sprott Borough is the new interesting piece of the puzzle.
Why Sprott Borough? It's in South Yorkshire, a good distance from Preston.
It suggests the police have some piece of information, maybe a witness statement, maybe a credit card receipt, that puts the family there during that crucial 2004 window. Maybe they were visiting family, maybe they stayed there for a while.
So they're looking for anyone who remembers seeing them. Shopkeepers, neighbors.
Anyone. They want to know, when was the last time Lambduin was seen alive? Did anyone hear arguments? Did anyone see their car at odd hours? They're trying to build a circumstantial case by tightening the noose around that timeline.
It's incredible to think that someone out there, maybe someone listening right now, could hold the key to this whole thing and not even realize it.
Memory is a strange thing. Back in 2004, you might have just thought, that Thai lady down the road moved away. You'd never connect it to a news story about a body found miles away in the Dales. But now, with a name and a face, police are hoping those old memories will surface.
Let's talk about the big unresolved questions. The biggest one has to be, we still don't know how she died.
We don't. The decomposition stole that answer.
The fact there were no broken bones,
Yeah.
does that rule out a fall into the cave system?
It makes it much less likely, yes. A fall like that would almost certainly have resulted in multiple fractures. It also makes a violent bludgeoning less likely.
So we're left with causes of death that don't mark the skeleton.
Things that affect the soft tissue or the internal systems. So strangulation, suffocation, poisoning, maybe even drowning.
And proving any of those now is.
Next to impossible. Forensically, you can't find bruises on skin that's gone.
So how do you prosecute a murder if you can't even prove the cause of death?
You have to do it circumstantially. You build a case based on the totality of the circumstance.
Which brings us back full circle to the missing shoes.
Exactly. You argue that a healthy woman in her 30s does not end up barefoot in a remote stream and die of natural causes. You argue that the secret disposal of the body is evidence of guilt. You argue that the failure to report her missing is evidence of guilt. You build a picture where the only logical conclusion is homicide.
It's a much harder case to win in court, though.
Oh, it is. A defense lawyer would have a field day with the lack of a cause of death. They'll say, you can't prove she didn't have a sudden heart attack and he just panicked.
But that's where his behavior afterwards, the board comments, the immediate move to Thailand, that all comes into play.
Exactly. Panic looks like panic. Moving to another continent and starting a new life looks an awful lot like escape.
I just want to go back to the sociological angle we touched on, the vulnerability of women like Lambduin.
It's so critical to understanding why this was a cold case for so long. She was, by her very situation, isolated, living in a culture that wasn't hers, dependent on her husband.
Her isolation was the killer's best friend.
It was their greatest weapon. They banked on her not being missed. They banked on her being other enough that her disappearance wouldn't trigger a massive search. And for 15 years, that gamble paid off.
But they didn't count on the villagers in Horton and Ribblesdale.
No, they didn't. That community broke the pattern. They refused to let her be other. They made her one of them.
And they didn't count on science catching up.
The technology caught up with the crime. It always does eventually. Time is the enemy of the criminal. The truth was there all along, locked in the atoms of her hair.
Before we finish, I want to touch on that emotional closure for her family. There was a really significant moment in 2023.
Yes. The North Yorkshire police team flew back out to Thailand.
This was after she was identified, but before the arrest.
They went to meet her parents, Bawasa and Jumsri. And they didn't just go to take statements. They went to give them something, a memorial book.
A book of photos of the funeral the village held for her, of her grave.
Of the flowers that total strangers had been placing on her grave for 15 years.
That gets me. Imagine believing your daughter was lost and forgotten, and then learning that a whole village of strangers on the other side of the planet had been caring for her and mourning her all that time.
Her parents were incredibly moved. They saw that she had been treated with dignity and respect, and the police began the process of arranging to have her remains returned to Thailand for a proper Buddhist ceremony.
Which is so important for them.
It's about letting her spirit rest. It's the final act of bringing her home.
So to sum up, we have David Armitage on bail. The police are still digging into that 2004 timeline. The CPS is weighing up the evidence.
They have to be sure. A trial after more than 20 years is a huge undertaking. Memories fade, witnesses can be hard to find. They need to be absolutely certain they can get a conviction.
It really feels like we're on the brink of the final chapter.
We are. The arrest was the climax of the investigation. Now it's the legal endgame. We're closer to the truth than we have ever been.
It makes you think, for 15 years it looked like the perfect crime. An anonymous body, a suspect on the other side of the world, a case file gathering dust.
But there's no such thing as a perfect crime when you leave a body behind. The body always tells a story. The clothes tell a story. The atoms in your hair tell a story. You can't silence physics.
And you can't silence people who refuse to forget.
The hikers who found her, the villagers who buried her, the cold case detectives who reopened the file, the scientists who ran the tests, the family who never stopped hoping. It's this whole chain of people refusing to let the silence win.
What a journey. From a mannequin in a stream to a named victim, Lamb to an Armitage. From a forgotten cold case to an active murder investigation with a prime suspect.
And a powerful reminder that the truth has a way of coming out, even if it takes 2 decades. Sometimes the stones of the Yorkshire Dales do talk. It just takes science and time to hear them.